you know, what it means. It just means a lot to be a part of this, like, period.
Yeah.
Just being able to, I know that this is my art, so anything I'm feeling, I translate it into my music, and just to be able to do that for somebody else is like, uh, there's no price you can put on this experience. So thank you again for thinking of me for this.
Honors all ours.
That word safe place, when you interviewed Mijan, that's what she said to you.
That's right. She's like, Billy, I'm trying to hold it all together for my family when all I needed was a safe place to fall apart. I have always believed that if there's something that is within your power to do, that you have a responsibility to do it. My father was in the military, in the Air Force, for 20 years, and I'm the oldest son of 2 pastors on top of that. So I grew up in a very strict home, lived all over the world as a child. Every 3 to 4 years, if you know the military life, you're moving somewhere, and had the chance to live in Europe for a time, and I'm grateful for the culture that I gained as a result. My first love was singing. So I started as a very young child singing in church. But for writing poetry, I learned that gift from reading my mom's poems and studying her writing when I was a little kid. And I thought that those poems were the most beautiful thing that I had ever read. And I wanted to write like my mom.
It's over now. I feel like I can make it. The story's over now.
My very first record deal that I signed when I was 19 years old. Long story short, the label that I was signed to wanted to replace one of the members of the group. I fought against it out of loyalty, and they froze our contract out. When I lost the record deal, I couldn't legally sing. So that was when I made the shift to producing full time, because it was the only way that I could produce music and earn a living. One night, I was producing rappers, and a couple of the rappers that were there at the studio were leaving to go to make a store run to go get some food and drinks and snacks and whatever else. And when they opened the burglar bars on the studio to go out, there were armed assailants that were waiting outside in the little patch right across from the door that ran in with guns and made us give up everything that we had. The money that I had just earned from the beats that I'd sold that day was my rent money. And not only did they take all the money that we had, but they took my equipment, they took all of my discs with my beats on it. So I wasn't able to earn that money back, and I ended up homeless directly as a result of being robbed at the studio in 5th Ward. And when I say homeless, I mean eating out of trash cans, sleeping on cardboard boxes. I lost teeth during that time. You know, I went through the ugliness of homelessness that they don't show you in the television shows and movies that gloss over it. I encountered that. I went through a period of being suicidal during that time. I think I felt forgotten. I think I went through a period where I felt like, God, you gave me this talent. You gave me a passion for it. I had been singing since I was a young child, pursuing that with everything that I had. I had put all my eggs in that one basket. And here I am sleeping with rats crawling over me at night and rats eating the food that my friends would bring for me. I don't think I ever doubted that God was able to deliver me. I just felt like he maybe had turned his eye away from me. He wasn't concerned about me anymore, like I felt left alone. And that was sobering.
I just remember being hit and falling, but the witnesses said I rolled up her car like in the movies, and yeah, it was bad. I rolled up her car, my backpack exploded, she knocked my shoes off my feet, my glasses went flying. Finally, somebody turned me over, and all of a sudden I was exhausted. And I just tried to go to sleep, and people were like smacking me like, no, you have to stay awake. And I started going into shock. You know, just that instant, it was like somebody dropped me into an ice cold bucket of water. And I remember the girl getting out of her car and looking down at me, and she started crying. She was on the phone. She's like, I gotta go, I just hit someone. Then the police came. There was this really nice older lady. I wish I could have remembered her name, but she kind of kept me conscious at the time, because I think by that time I started speaking gibberish. And I said something about my kids and something about classes. I was actually on the way to class. I remember being rushed into this flurry of triage doctors and nurses. They were asking me a lot of questions I couldn't answer, so they started to poke, and everything hurt. So I ended up getting some Dilaudid, which is basically morphine. And I remember them cutting my clothes off of me, and it was the winter time, and that was my only sweater. And I remember crying because I didn't have a sweater that I could wear after that. The one sweater I had was, they cut off. So I don't think people who don't experience abject poverty don't understand how much a little thing like that means. It's a painful kind of thing, you know, to be so poor and to have so little and then have the little bit you have be taken. Her insurance would do nothing for my medical bills, nothing. So that was the point that broke us. I was a kid who loved everything and wanted to do many things. I went through phases where I wanted to be a veterinarian or a fighter pilot or mad scientist. I loved MacGyver. I used to watch that all the time, and finally I asked my uncle one day, and I was like, what do you have to study so you can do the things that MacGyver does? And he's like, oh, you just have to be an engineer. And so then I was just like, I'm going to be a MacGyver engineer. And that kind of started my path towards engineering. University of Houston was a refreshing shock, coming from where I lived and, you know, never really fitting in my neighborhood because of the way I spoke, and never really fitting in my school because I was extremely introverted. And then coming to a college where I was surrounded by other like antisocial nerds was just like beautiful. So it was basically finding my niche. I wanted to be able to build something from the ground up and to program it. And it was just always something amazing going on. Like I could go into a hallway and somebody was testing a robot. And if you're an easily distractible nerd, that's a hard place to be. My husband and I, we always lived mostly paycheck to paycheck, but things always petered out and measured out in the end. But things were just going downhill. I realized that I could not go to school full-time and work full-time and take care of 2 kids. He agreed. He's like, okay, if you want to, you can go to school full-time, but we're gonna have to do away with a lot. And so I decided that I wanted to basically leave my job and try to finish school, because at that point I was paying my way and I had already been in school, taking a class here and there for 5 years. But our life was not very sustainable on one income. So we kind of got by until we couldn't. My husband had lost his job previously, and he had just found a job, had been there for a week, and then I got hit by a car and he had to quit because I could not make it to the bathroom without help. So after that, we had little to no income, and I had medical problems I had to walk with a cane probably for like 3 months. So that was the beginning of the end as far as us being evicted. There's only one other time that I could describe what I was feeling. I had a couple problems as a kid and ran away from home for a little bit. And there was a time where I remember it getting dark and I was panicking because there was no place for me to go. I remember this kind of overwhelming feeling of not having to, a place to lay your head, or there's some place that you can go for refuge. And when you don't have that, it untethers you in a way, and you feel like your life, or you're just spinning and anything can just blow you off the planet. It's like you feel like there's nothing holding you to anything. It would have been okay if it was just me, but it was all of us, Me and my husband are adults. We can take care of ourselves. We can live in a car. We can, scavenge for food or something. But my children were, 5 and 8, maybe 4 and 7. I can't make them sleep outside in the cold. I can't make them do things that are unsafe. So it's one thing to have it happen to you. It's another thing to have it happen to you and your family.
Everyone that knows me had nothing good to say about me. I brought old friends, my dad. No one has anything good to say about me. And it's probably for a reason. My parents are from Michoacan, Mexico. I was born in Mexico too. I was like in 3rd grade when they brought me over here, so I was like maybe 8, 7 years old, something like that. I remember going straight to school, getting here, and I was like 3rd grade. And it was pretty intense because I didn't speak the language. And the school that I went to, I was like one of the first Mexicans in that area. So it was pretty intense from both sides. I was never really attracted to gangs until I met this girl, which is my ex-wife. My ex-wife or her brothers, they were crazy. And I kind of had to keep up. These are her brothers, right? So I try to keep up to impress her. My family are just regular blue-collar people. And my ex-wife's family, they're pretty hardcore. So I kind of liked that. I liked that. I liked what I saw. I liked that these guys were really tough, you know, and they were just tough guys. So it was appealing, you know, the power, because there is power in it. So that was very attractive, you know. When I got into high school is when I really got into the gangs. Barely made it to freshman year when I dropped out. I buried all my best friends. All of my best friends, they're all dead because of gang violence. I guess I'm numb to that. I probably don't know how to feel. I've been shot. I've been stabbed a lot. I got stabbed here, my back. Mexico is a Catholic country, hardcore Catholic. So we all grow up knowing the stories. Noah, Jesus. We grew up knowing these stories. We just don't grow up practicing what it says. Something happened in our family. I got violent, and I beat him up. I had to set him straight. Let him know that this is not gonna ride. As long as I'm around, I'm not gonna let it happen. So everybody in my family just accused me of being possessed and being this really bad person. I had nowhere to go because I pretty much burned all the bridges with my family. Nobody wanted me around because of that. I had nowhere to go, but throughout my gangbanging career, I picked up skills, right? Pick up some skills. So I'm in the streets, and I'm surviving, right? But I'm there, and it's like I'm fed up. I'm tired of this life. I don't want to do this anymore. And they were looking for me because I was just roaming the streets. So they were looking for me. I talked to my sister, and she tells me, hey, there's this place, Salvation Army. They got this program. You should go check it out. They'll give you some housing. So I went, and it was all downhill from there. God just started showering me with attention and gifts, and I fell in love with him.
Our job as a Salvation Army is like you would in any army. We survey the scene, we survey the land, and we make a battle plan then to figure out how to best tackle the needs of our community. And what's truly needed is someone that's going to always fill the gap for those communities. And so we're constantly trying to make sure that we are where the gaps are, to try to bridge those gaps and to try to make sure that people's needs are met. For us here in Greater Houston, that's very much sheltering, but it's a supportive shelter that brings into housing. That's navigation. That can be anything from resource navigation like food, medicines, health and well-being, to programs like our Salvation Army Boys and Girls Clubs, where we're trying to, at the start, help kids see themselves for what they can be. And so you're building that on the front end before it becomes an issue at the back end.
I was at work, working in medicine. I was pharmacy tech. I was on my job for 19 years and had an ugly stroke, and I was supposed to be getting myself together with rehabilitation, you know, trying to get my right side back together and stuff like that. And in the midst of that, I go back to the doctor in the month of December, And I found out, well, you need to check your insurance, Miss Davis. So I'm trying to figure out what my insurance, and I call, and it's like I'm wiped off the map. I didn't exist. 19 years and you don't exist. How you don't exist? 19 years and you don't exist. This is what's going through my mind. I was really an emotional wreck because I couldn't believe it was happening to me. I just couldn't believe it. You know, I didn't know what had went wrong, what I had done wrong, how could this be happening to me. My daughter is 34. This was her place. I helped her get this place, so everything was in my name. And then me going from the stroke to not having a job led me to her. She's already going through a struggle financially. I'm already helping her pay, you know, her bills, some rent, you know, just to make sure she's okay. And she made me feel like there wasn't enough. It's like I owed her more, you know, and it just got bad. When I backed up and stepped out the door, I knew I was I was preparing myself for a small storm. I knew a storm was about to happen because I didn't know where I was going, what was going to happen. So, you know, I was in my car. I went to my sister a few times, and then, you know, I was in my car a lot, you know, with the baby. It was hot. It was just, it was heavy. I was thinking about my son in Japan. I was thinking, I can't do this, because he kept saying, Mom, I want to go home. You know, I want to go home. But we didn't have a home after that. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just felt like I was sinking at this point. I emailed Star of Hope, and they redirected me to the Salvation Army. On a Friday, Miss Johanna, she called me. And I missed her call, but she left a voicemail. So I called her, and we set up a time to meet. I was praying that she had some good news for me. Yes, she had good news. She told me to call Miss Ruby. She sent me a text saying that I needed to be there at a certain time. And on my way to the Jones residence, I'm driving, and I'm thinking, because I'm looking at the time, and Miss Johanna say, if you need to call and tell them you're late, you know, just let them know so, you know, they'll be prepared. So I'm driving, and all kind of things is going through my head. My car don't have a sticker. I have insurance, but my car don't have a sticker. I'm going downtown, and I'm like, they're gonna take my car. I can't go. So I'm almost there, and I exit and U-turn. I said, I'm not gonna go. But these words is what had me going, because Miss Johanna say, are you sure you want to do this? Because people say that they're going, and then they change their mind. And I'm like, no, because I knew what my situation was. I'm going. But when I was driving and I looked at the window of my car and I see no sticker, glass all broken, what I'm going to do. And so I exit because I'm freaking like, oh, they're going to take my car. I ain't going to have my car. What if I don't get in here? I'm still going to have to sleep in my car. And so when I exit, and it was like, get back on that freeway and get your butt up there. You better go. That's what I heard in my ear. Get back on that freeway and go. I'm thinking that, you know, we in, you know, this building where families all is in a, like, almost like a room or a cafeteria, or, you know, just one big room where we all have to, you know, share. And, you know, this is your bunk. This is your bunk. You're mad or whatever. That's what I'm thinking, because all this is new to me. So, we go upstairs, and, you know, we get to the room 308. That was my room. And, you know, she gave me this piece of paper that have my room number and my PIN. So, you know, you have to push the numbers in. So, you know, I'm feeling like I get to really sleep in a bed. I get to rest. I get to, you know, Japan is buddy, you know, buddy, we good.
I felt like the most horrible failure of parents, and I was just like, this is it, Mijan. You're at the bottom of the run. You have, you know, you're homeless with your kids. Nothing will ever redeem you in the eyes of parenthood. And I'm laying there, and I'm freaking out, and when you're in a situation where you always have to fight or flight, it makes your world very small. So you don't see past the next 2 steps or the next step. So you don't, worry about how you're going to, eat on Wednesday. You're just worrying about how you're going to eat today. So I remember laying down, and I had been in such a high anxiety state for so long that I didn't know that I wasn't sleeping until the first night that I just kind of lay there and passed out for like 12 hours. Because, I finally had a place that I didn't have to stress about, because I couldn't sleep well at home because it was the middle of winter, and we had no heat. And so we were all piled together in the bed wearing as many pairs of clothes as we had. But then I didn't know when the police were going to knock on the door and kick us out. So I laid up at night waiting, for that to happen. I remember my son, and I was just like, hey, we're going to be living with here now. So, and he like stepped out to the hallway and went down, and he came running back. He's like, Mom, there's other kids here. And so I was just like, yeah. And he's like, is this like college? Is this like a dormitory? I was like, you could say that. It's like a dormitory. He's like, oh, this is awesome. So he thought it was the most amazing thing. So because they were really social kids, so they had other kids that were like right in the hallway that they can go knock on their door and pester. So they were they were like the cats that swallowed the canary, So that made me feel a lot better that they were so happy to be there.
Yeah.
One thing about the Salvation Army that I will always admire, they keep those kids so distracted. Like, there are so many activities. Like, we were going to counseling, the moms. We were going to budgeting classes. We were going to nutrition classes. We were learning how to not make the same mistakes that got us here. So we had work to do. Meanwhile, the kids were playing guitar with Second Baptist, and on the Minecraft truck and doing this. And every weekend there was something. Every few weeks there was something. They took my babies to Cirque du Soleil. I could not afford to take my children to Cirque du Soleil. They took them to the YMCA. They had like gaming trucks come. Second Baptist, shout out to Second Baptist. They were there almost every other weekend, playing guitar, doing crafts with the kids. So for them, they were on a 7-month-long field trip. So if you ask them about that time, all they remember is fun and friends. And I will forever be indebted to Salvation Army for that. We were referred to career counseling, and they work with other agencies like Dress for Success and the Work Source, and we would get a referral. We'd go down there and they would set us up with things and try to help us. And so meanwhile, we got free medical care. I got an inhaler and got new glasses for the first time in probably 10 years. And so because if you're not insured, you tend to not go to the ER. I remember having walking pneumonia and treating it with NyQuil for a month because I'd rather do that than go to the ER and rack up a bill.
I'm checking into the Salvation Army, and I'm already starting to feel that desperation. I gotta get out of here. I want to get out of here. I'm not gonna do this. So I started praying. I'm asking God to show up. Show me something, anything, all right? Show me that this is you. Show me that this is real, because I'm not going to spend the rest of my life following something that's not real. So my ex-wife calls me, and she tells me she needs about $500 for rent. She's not going to make ends meet. So again, anxiety hits me even more. I got to get out of here, go help her out. So I start praying some more, and I'm asking God to do something, to show up. And he does. I started praying, right, and I see the magazine War Cry, and it caught my attention because of the crew that I used to run with, called War Crew. So I started reading the magazine, and it says the Salvation Army is a church. So I take it as a sign. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna stay. They take me to the thrift store to grab some clothes, and I grab my clothes, I grab some shoes, go back to my room, I'm getting settled in, and I'm putting my stuff away. And I had these shoes, and I put them away, and I looked at I looked at my shoes, I put them away. I see the insoles. There was a picture of the Benjamin Franklin. So I lay down and I'm thinking, like, why would they design the insoles? You know, no one's ever going to see the insoles of the shoes. Why would they make a Benjamin Franklin design on the inside of the shoe? So I pick them up and I put my hand in the shoe and I feel a bunch of paper. So I pull that out, put it in my pocket, I go in the washroom, I start counting. It's $500, exactly. So it's like, why not 501? 500, some change, a quarter, a penny, anything. Exactly $500 what this girl was asking me for. So I called her and I'm like, hey, I got the money. So she went and she picked it up. And it was just a roller coaster of stuff like that happening. So it's like, people's opinions about Jesus, my experience with him dwarfs their opinions. I know he's alive. I know he's real. My dad, he told me if I ever work for a company, wherever I go to work, and then they make you clean the floors, they make you sweep the floors, you sweep those floors like no one has ever swept those floors before. You pour your heart into it, whatever. You know, whatever job they give you to do, you do it well. And I'm in there and, you know, I got all the time in the world, so I start reading the Bible. It said what my dad told me, right? Whenever you work, work hard. The Bible says to pour your heart out, right? And it says to pour out your heart and everything that you do. Because in death, there's no more none of that. There's no more thinking, there's no more hard work when you die, right? So while you're alive, go hard. Go big or go home. So I did, and it got me a job, I think. That program started here on the west side, and it's working. A lot of their youth are growing up. They're able to find jobs because they don't have a background because of this program. It didn't go into a background. This halfway house program, the program, so they say that statistically about 70% of men that go to jail for more than 3-4 years, when they come out, within a month, they're back in. And about 75% of men that go to jail go right back in. And this program cut it more than half. So now, like, the men that go through this program, it's like 20% of them will go back to jail instead of 70-80%. So that's a big thing.
As much as we would like to, there's no way that we could meet all of the needs, and so by ourselves. And when I say would want to, we don't want to do it by ourselves, but we desire to meet all the needs. But we recognize our limitations and understand too that within our limitations creates the opportunity for us to link arms with others, whether that's other organizations, other nonprofits, because what we found is obviously is as we do our best to link arms, we're able to accomplish a lot more together.
So I had a friend of mine named Gary Hamilton. He and his wife at the time, Dee. And I remember when it got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I asked him, hey man, can I just come sleep on your sofa? I'll go, you know, I'll find a job somewhere and rebuild and get back on my feet. And he and his wife at the time, Dee, allowed me to come and sleep on their sofa. And I'll never forget my first job after being homeless was a collection agency on the north side of town. And Dee and Gary at that time lived off of I-10 and Federal all the way on that side of town. And I used the money I earned from working at that collection agency to build a new studio and get back to the music. I've accomplished every goal that I had for my career when I was a kid. I wanted to win Grammys and have #1 albums. I wanted to create songs that touch people all over the world. But I understand that none of it matters if you don't use the influence, the visibility, the authority, the access that those things give you to make other people's lives better. When I was homeless, one of the things that I wish I had known about at the beginning of that journey was that there were resources that were available to me that could have made my life more bearable in that moment. My understanding of the Salvation Army at that time was disaster relief. You see them whenever there's a tornado or a hurricane or a flood or something like that, they step in, as do other organizations that are well known. But I didn't know that they had the homeless resources to help you to get back on their feet. And so when I learned about that, and after going through everything I had been through, and then I became successful in entertainment, I wanted to put every bit of my influence into making sure that people that are going through what I went through knew that there was help out there, and that they knew they weren't alone, and that they knew that there were people who not only could help them, but actually cared and wanted to see them better.
Well, Billy, you grew up in the church. Your parents are pastors. You weren't supposed to have problems.
Yeah, that's the story they tell, but church kids have just as many problems as everybody else does.
Yeah.
So.
When I first started working with KHOU and doing some things with Deborah Duncan and the team, it all kind of dovetailed because the Salvation Army was their charitable partner for the year. So it was a no-brainer for me to get involved. Paige Harris, who worked for the Salvation Army at the time, Paige connected myself and Mejan through a meeting at a coffee shop. I got the opportunity to go and sit down with her, and the heart was that I wanted to hear the stories firsthand from families that the Salvation Army had helped them to overcome homelessness as I had, and to kind of hear them share the journey and any messages that they wanted to impart into other people who would go through the same thing, and then to be able to turn their thoughts and feelings into songs. That's, again, music is my gift, songwriting is my art.
When you come through things like this, people think you're brave and they think you're amazing, and they don't realize you're scared out of your wits the whole time it happens. And my family didn't even know all of this was going on, by the way. That's how secretive I became, because it was I was ashamed at the time. I didn't tell anyone, and I probably could have had more help, but I would have walked across hot coals before I told my family that I had failed to that extent. I was in a scholarship program before we lost everything, and it was the Berkshire Scholarship at University of Houston. Dr. Berkshire is deceased now, but he was alive at the time. It was the William A. Berkshire Fund. So I was on there, but when we came to the shelter, I was unemployed. So I sent a letter to one of the scholarship coordinators, like, hey, can I still apply even though I'm not employed at the time? My family, we lost everything, and we live in a homeless shelter. I'm going to get a job. I just don't have one right now, and I can't afford to go without this funding. When he found out that my family was in the shelter, he dropped $5,000 into my lap. And really, it was more than that, because I owed the university a debt by that time, because I was basically feeding my family off of a student lunch plan. And that was basically what got us out of the shelter. You know, it was the generosity of one man. Getting out of the shelter doesn't fix everything. I have a friend who has a saying, like, you know, if you come through struggle, sometimes you still have a little struggle trailing behind you, you know? So we still had things that we needed to take care of, and we still had hardships that we needed to face, but I still needed to keep a certain GPA. Sadly enough, Dr. Berkshire died months before I graduated. I'm a software engineer for a NASA contractor. I work for Leidos. We program, update, and maintain all the systems on the ISS. So if it runs on a program or a computer system, that is our baby. I do a lot of coding. I work with some really, really awesome people. I work with some of the smartest people in the country, and it's kind of crazy, you know, because they're also really cool. And found another nerd heaven. The magazine is where all of this kind of started. It's called Parameters. I was under the impression that the university magazine was a small thing. It is no small thing at all. That came out, then all of a sudden I was getting calls from people. My company wanted to talk, and then the news, and then it was wild for a bit. It was overwhelming. The Salvation Army was doing a fundraising project for a Christmas campaign, and they wanted to share some success stories from some of their clients, and of course I came up. I still keep up with the ladies there, so they gave my name to one of their media cohorts, and she called me and was like, we have a producer working on this project, and we wanted to introduce you guys and everything. And so, you know, I was like, okay, cool, I'll go talk to him.
Hey. I'm good, how are you?
And so she shared with me and talking about everything that she'd been through and what the Salvation Army meant to her. She stated something that really, you know, it struck a nerve with me. She said, I was falling apart, and the Salvation Army came along, and what I realized is all I needed was a safe place to fall apart. And when she said that, I immediately grabbed my cell phone and started typing. And I remember Mijan, she was like, "Are you good? Do you need to take that?" And I'm like, no, I don't need to take anything. I'm writing song lyrics.
You know, he's like, no, keep talking. And, you know, and I'm telling him everything that I feel and everything I felt. And he's putting my words into song and writing a song on the spot. And so we became instant friends.
Almost verbatim, you know, the words that she shared with me from her heart that day became the first song from the Safest Place project, and the song's actually called "A Safe Place to Fall Apart."
Gotta hold it together now. Can't let them see the seams. Let me put a caution sign around. What's left of my broken dreams? I've been on the wrong road for too long. I was bound to crash eventually. I'm so tired of being strong. Why can't someone else be strong for me?
As a singer, your voice is your voice. But when you're a songwriter, you get to inhabit the voices of whoever you're writing for. And it's similar to an actor that gets to play any role and become the character in any film or television show that they're part of. As a songwriter, I get to embody the character of each artist that I write for and each song that we're creating. And that's always been tremendously appealing to me. It's my strongest gift is songwriting.
All right, so Jay, we're blessed to have you a part of the song. You killed it.
Thank you.
No doubt, no doubt. So tell us a little bit about how the song connected with you personally.
I would say the song resonated with me mostly because I was raised by a single mom. So, you know, I just see my mom work so hard from literally the time I was born. My mom was working 2 to 3 jobs. So seeing such a strong figure and knowing like where I came from, really remembering like the grassroots of it all, like this song resonates with me so much because sometimes you do just need a place to fall apart, and my place is a studio. But, you know, it could be anybody, anywhere, and, you know, times do get better, but in that moment, it's like, I need a loving hand, I do, and I need a place to fall apart.
Mijan was the first person I sent the song to because it was her words, it was her heart in a song form. And, you know, when she read the lyrics, she just starts texting me all this, you know, I see all the bubbles and the dots on the iPhone as she's just effusing about the emotion that it conveyed and how we captured her heart and her thoughts on the craft that went into it. It was really special.
It provoked such a raw response in me, and like just it pulled these emotions out of me, and I was just like, bro, I don't know how this will make other people feel, but I don't know, man, you've written something powerful, you know. And I said, I don't know how you turned my story into this, you know. But I loved it. I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard.
It's good to see your face.
Always a pleasure.
Don't be a stranger,
okay. Says the woman that texts once every few months.
Don't be like that. I have a good reason to don't do that.
I don't know how you sing with such emotion and such raw everything, but I think it was not just the words, but I think it was her voice that just kind of pulled all of that emotion out of me. And I was like, who is she?
Is there a safe place to fall apart?
The Safest Place project started off as a Christmas project with KHOU and Deborah Duncombe. We were able to do some interviews, and we got to work. And in that Christmas, we raised $2.5 million through those efforts that were, you know, everything from red kettles to online giving. And when they gave online, you got access to a song. And so not only was that song something that someone was given because of their donation, it also then reminded them of why they gave. It told that story. That, you know, that story is actually the safest place to fall apart. Is a story that is written about one of our clients. That's now a true success story from our Jones family residence.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Great Day Houston. When we say home for the holidays, and it's the most wonderful time of the year, for the homeless, it's just another day trying to survive. For decades, our first guests have been part of the answer to a growing problem across our country. Majan found herself in a downward spiral and eventually on the streets. Because of the program she was able to take part in, today she has a place to call home and a job that is out of this world, literally. And please welcome Majan, Major Zach Bell, with the Salvation Army. You have the right last name. And Grammy Award winning songwriter and producer Billy Dorsey, who was also homeless at one time.
I think everyone initially got the whole thought of, let's communicate this in a different way so that we're not only reaching the donors that traditionally give to the Salvation Army, but that we can get some people excited about something creative and new that could be the donors of the next generation, the next era for the organization. And that was the heart from the beginning, and it remains so today.
Welcome artist Jay Renee with A Safe Place to Fall Apart.
Gotta hold it together now. Can't let them see the seams. Let me put a caution sign around what's left of my broken dreams. I've been on the wrong road for too long.
I understood that the Salvation Army had recently started taking crypto for donations, so they were already dipping their toe into that water. And I realized that if we wanted to do something that was going to touch people in a different way and raise some eyebrows outside of their traditional donor base, we needed to be avant-garde in our approach. And I knew that they had never commercially released an NFT, and that was the craze of 2021 and early 2022. It just made sense to do it.
I didn't even know what an NFT was until recently with this, in a sense of our comprehension of how this could really affect positively the programs and services of the Salvation Army. A Salvation Army is only as strong as the community allows it to be. That could be through volunteering, that could be through donations of resources, that could be through, at this time, buying an NFT.
NFT stands for non-fungible token, and all it means is a piece of art that cannot be duplicated. It's not limited to being a piece of art or a song. It's something that you're buying that denotes ownership, but it also conveys that it's a unique property. The thought for me in tying an NFT to this project is that everyone does giveaways of music, and for many years people have done albums, and one of my biggest heroes is Quincy Jones with We Are the World and all the hundreds of millions of dollars that Aid for Africa raised. That's a template for a lot of the things that I do with music and philanthropy. When I was homeless on the streets, I could not do the things that I'm able to do for other people for myself. I didn't suffer alone. I didn't go through that alone because I had people who loved me, who cared, and who got up and inconvenienced themselves, I'm sure, to make sure that I made it through that time. And I would be remiss, having been the recipient of that grace, to not show that same grace to other people.
The Salvation Army does that for people. It's not just Bible thumping, but it also lends a hand while also encouraging you, while also giving you some food. I think Salvation Army really is doing the most good. Well, Jesus is doing the most good through the Salvation Army. This is me and my daughter's sketchbook. My kids, they draw on this, and what I do is the things that they draw, I would try to go over them and try to throw in my artistic hands into it, or my vibe into it. I'll give you some examples. My kids are great kids. They're really great kids, and I don't know where they get it from, because I was never a good example.
Dice 92. Traigo el aire acondicionado en lo bien bajito y mira, está fresco.
My priority for my kids is that they know that Jesus is alive. So one time, my ex-wife, she texted me, but she was asking my daughters, like, what do you guys do when you're with him and stuff like that? And my daughter turned around and told her, he only talks about holy things. So that was pretty fulfilling for me. I felt good. I was like, really? I thought I had nothing good to offer. Just this pouring of positive words and positive reinforcement, and just that kind of stuff just kind of like made me realize my value, right? So maybe if I wasn't here, that I would have never realized that value.
Come on.
As far as the people who are at the Salvation Army Family Residence, we keep in touch. Those are my family. And then for the organization, whatever they need, I'm here for. Even though we were homeless, we were still giving some of our agency back, you know, and that was the most comforting thing, you know, and it gave us a place to kind of be sheltered. And the Salvation Army Family Residence was a very good experience for us, yeah, even in a very bad time.
You know that guy? This is why I'm here, because of all the help from, you know, the Salvation Army that have me here, and it's a beautiful feeling. It's amazing. I mean, it still haven't set in yet, but it's here, you know. And this here, this tree here, I don't know. It just spoke out to me, so I took a picture of it, and I used this one as my screensaver. But when I couldn't sleep at night, I would grab my phone, and this is what I would look at. It's just like something that calmed me down, or just put me back at ease to where I can go back to sleep. I don't want to sound like something is wrong with me, but I always want to call and just tell them how appreciative I am, how grateful I am to have beautiful friends to help me along the way. I was reading history on Mr. William, Miss Catherine, and Miss Evangelina. That's where it started. They called it the Volunteer Army, but they crossed it out and put the Salvation Army because of the people that came out and shared the gospel with poor people. And I love reading stories like that. And oh my God, I was like, this is nice, you know, to just hear people that, because they love us enough to let us know that, you know, we're here. You know, we're going to do whatever we can to help you, help yourself to get going. He finished the puzzle. You see that, huh?
That's the call for all of us, is to make our community better, and we get to do that by serving others. And so I'd highly encourage you to give. If you're looking to give back in some way, to do so with the Salvation Army. And if you're interested in this NFT, these proceeds will go to that Jones residence. Billy's got a big goal. He wants to sponsor the whole Jones residence for a year, and that takes over $1 million to do that.
On a tombstone, there's the born date, and when you pass away, there's a dash, and then there's the year and date that you pass away. But we're in the middle of that dash, and that's the time that you get to dictate what your legacy is going to be. And if you give up the faith, then you give up in the middle before you even make it to the end. So don't give up. Don't let go. Don't lose faith, no matter how hard it is. I've been there. I understand. But I'm also on the other side of it now to tell you that it does get better, that you will get stronger. That even if the circumstances don't change, that they will change you and give you the strength you need to overcome.
Gotta hold it together now. Can't let them see the seams. Let me put a caution sign around what's left of my broken dreams. I've been on the wrong road for too long. I was bound to crash eventually. I'm so tired of being strong. Why can't someone else be strong for me? Love that can fill the space in my depleted heart. 'Cause I put on my love out. You catch the tears streaming down my face. Hold me in your arms. My faith is not enough now. I need somebody to stand beside me. I need a loving hand to come and guide me. Is there a grace that can hide me away for a new start? Is there a safe place to fall apart? My facade's a broken shield, one blow away from shattered. Got me wondering if time can heal a soul that is left in tatters. And now every hurricane, and I'm just blowing in the wind. I can't take much more of this pain. Will the sun ever shine again? Cause I poured all my love out. Can you catch the tears streaming down my face? I think it's not enough now. Safe place.